welcome to Monroe MustHangs. I'm your host, David Spiegel. With me today is one of the newest members of the Monroe College Athletics family. Please welcome Esports Coordinator Govinda Raghubar.
Hello guys, how's it going?
Hey Govinda, so I'm happy to finally have you on the show. I want to talk about the newest Monroe MustHangs athletic program, which is our esports program, which is, an overbearing program, which encompasses many more titles, kind of in the same way that like we have men's sports and women's sports, we have esports now. So I want to talk to you today about how this program started, what it looks like right now, what the goals of it are. And I want to teach our audience what esports are and everything that goes into it, as someone who has a basic knowledge of it, but not a very in-depth knowledge of it. I can also say that I'll be learning a lot along with our audience. So I want to definitely take this time to educate everyone and show them what's so great about this upcoming opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So our program at Monroe is starting with like sort of a building year. We have started to collect students who are interested in the program, and we have a Discord server going that will be included somewhere for you guys to see this. But basically, we have started the program with 3 games. We are now competing in Overwatch, League of Legends, and Super Smash Bros. The first semester, which was last semester, we were collecting team members and stuff, and we are still absolutely open to new team members. So if you're interested, please look at the links. We have taken those guys and we've gotten coaches for each of the games, and now we're working on building their skills so that they can compete against other teams in the spring. So far, it's been pretty good. The interest level has been high. It's we are now looking to expand. While that means getting more students, it also means if there are other games that the students here or the students who are looking to come here might be interested in, we're looking to expand our offerings. Like some of the other games we've been looking at have been like Overwatch, which is a Blizzard card game. I'm sorry, not Overwatch, but Hearthstone. That's a Blizzard card game. While we're also looking at possibly Fortnite and then 2K. We got to fill some of that empty basketball season. It's been really interesting. I actually think 2K League specifically, they do a very good job of the competitive scene, and it'd be really interesting to see if some of the students are interested in that. We kind of started this program. We had ideas about wanting to do this program a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, and now it's finally come to fruition, and I'm super excited to get it off the ground. I think that esports has a very firm place in college because there are students who come out of high school and immediately go pro, or they have interest in going pro, and there's not a very direct path of I am good at this, how can I take advantage of the fact that I'm good at it. I think other sports, like traditional sports like basketball or baseball, if you're good at it, you can use that to your advantage and find a college that wants you, and then if you're good enough to go professional, you can do that, and if you're not, it was still worthwhile for you to play college. So I think that's what we're trying to build here, and it's really interesting to see how we can facilitate that and what gems we can find already existing in Monroe and what gems we can find to come to Monroe for next season.
Yeah, and esports is definitely something that I was kind of pushing for a while. I'm in my 4th year at Monroe, but it was one of the things that I brought up to our athletic director, Lou Melendez, and our Express athletic director, Larry Premiano, as well. And it was something we were talking about for a while. And then when I was told that you were coming on board and this was the plan, I got excited because, finally we're jumping into this field. And as we've been planning this the last few months, we've seen a lot of other schools in the area starting their own programs as well. And obviously that means that it's just going to raise the level of competition and raise the opportunities or increase the opportunities to compete locally as well as on a national stage at certain times. So I think what we're going to be doing is going to be really great, especially as it goes on. So the next thing I do want to discuss with you is, as I said, a lot of other programs are starting to add esports to their athletic programs. So what do you think it's going to be about our current program, or the program that we're building, that's going to make it unique and a different experience than what you might find at other places?
I think the difference here is that a lot of colleges, including I went to Hunter College, and they have sort of an esports program, but a lot of it is student driven. And while that's awesome, I love student driven programs in colleges. It allows for a sort of it's a lot more like natural because you're trying to get uh, the people at the school who don't really know about esports to wrap their head around why this is important and how they can help you. But that's always an uphill battle. So student-run programs right out the gate will always start better. I think it's awesome. It's like a passion project. You get kids who are like, I want to play this game. There are other people in other colleges who want to play this game. Let me seek them out. Let me find out how I can compete against them. However, the benefits that Monroe is allowing their students is that we are coming in with a full-fledged like coaching staff, and we can take a student who is just interested. If they're interested and dedicated, this is the program for you. We will help you get to where you want to go. As long as you have the interest and dedication, these games are games that are like very, very teachable. I think that once we get to a higher level, as the program gets stronger, the spots will be a lot more competitive, but there is absolutely like a spot for anyone as long as the interest level and the willing to listen and get better is there. We have the tools to develop these students inside. That's the big reason Monroe Esports is such a unique experience. You get to come in and want to help you find whatever your path is, including your gaming hobby. I think that the ability to not have to like, you know, we are supporting the program. We don't have, unlike other experiences I've had in the past with college esports, it's not completely up to the student to try to like figure out who they have to play against, how they're going to get there, who's recording score. All of this is stuff that Monroe wants to do internally, and we can really do some really cool production with this. I'd like to like, even if you're not good enough to play, but this is your interest, we can have students commentary. We can have students on the production side, like whether it be YouTube or Twitter. Like the Monroe Esports, it's going to be a whole package of how we present this opportunity to students at the school.
So you mentioned that obviously there's a lot of opportunity available when it comes to esports, and you know, we want to make sure that we're giving the best opportunities possible to the incoming students or students that are already at Monroe that decide to join this program. But you know, there are a few more things that make us unique in that, you know, just like varsity programs, there are scholarship opportunities available with our program. So I want to know if you could maybe expand upon this a little bit more, and you know, what we're looking to do with that.
Okay, so far for new incoming students, we're looking to offer scholarships so that we can attract the best of the best to Monroe in terms of esports. I think that there is a lot of opportunity for like how we want to develop this program, and Monroe has allowed us to. They basically hired me as one of our off-campus locations, where Encore Esports, I'm located about a block away from Monroe, 1 or 2 blocks away from Monroe, and you can come there. We will have competitions there with state-of-the-art equipment, good recording, able to do like an absolutely like monster production when it comes to like what our games will look to the public, whether like we're streaming on the Monroe Esports Twitch or on Instagram Live from Monroe. Like we will, I think the what Monroe is trying to do in terms of availing the students with the best equipment is awesome. Like besides doing that, we're also installing some places in the dorms for people to have as a place that you like hang out, but also as a place where this is a like where you can get some practice in, as well as I think it's Gaddy Hall, is it?
Yeah, that's one of the spots.
Yeah, is also where we're going to be putting some setups there for people to come practice with other teammates once the COVID thing kind of comes back to normal. So like once these regulations are lifted, we're looking really excited to take full advantage of all of the both on campus and off campus, the availability for the esports students to really like take advantage of state-of-the-art equipment in a facility that's very conducive to them growing their game as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I'm looking forward to as well, is that, with esports, at the very basic level, you're playing video games, and a lot of people play video games from home on their own computer or on their own PS4, PS5, Xbox, whatever it is, Nintendo Switch. But one thing that we definitely want to do is make this, just like our other sports, it's happening in person. We can have an audience. You're practicing with your teammates right next to you. And it's something I'm really looking forward to, is just seeing the camaraderie of the program as it builds and builds, and seeing the audiences once this becomes a really big thing. And I think it is going to be a really big thing. But one thing I do want to expand upon a little bit more, and you mentioned it, is that your business, Encore Esports, is down the block from Monroe College. So can you tell me more about what Encore Esports is and how you came to opening this place?
We are basically it depends. It depends what you're looking for with what we are, but we're really a hub for competitive esports. So like in like natural, like how it works, like normally you come in and it functions as an arcade, but not arcade games, more so like esport games. Like it's people come to just hang out and play esport games like Legends or Counter-Strike and things on the computer, or Smash Bros on the Nintendo Switches, or they come to play the multiplayer games. And the whole purpose of it is, while it may be fun for me to, like, if I want to get better at basketball, me going to the park and working on fundamentals and shooting, that's something that I could do by myself, and that's like conducive, right? But everyone enjoys and will have a more full experience by them going to like the park with friends and then doing the same thing and being able to work on more things because you have more people, and then seeing what other people are working on. So that's the kind of idea. There's a phrase that I quite like. It's iron sharpens iron, and the idea here is that we put the students with like-minded people who also want to get better, and it gives them that environment of like, hey, this is like the motivation and inspiration I need. I come here, I see what people are doing, I add to the group, I'm part of like the community here. And that's really what Encore Esports is about. Encore Esports is all about, it's all about just being the place where you go to like be around other people who want to get better. Like, it is definitely a place for fun and hanging out, but it is absolutely a training ground. Like, this is where people come to hone their skills.
I grew up in the time where you go to the mall and you go to X Zone and you sit down and you have like, essentially a LAN party playing Counter-Strike. So
yeah,
it's to me, when I first learned about Encore Esports, it sounded like something like that. But obviously, talking to you, I've learned that it's not just, sitting down in front of a computer and playing games with people that are around you. It's so much more. And it's not only an entertainment facility, but it's also a learning facility in a way that, you are looking to help expand the skills of, prospective esport athletes or ones that are already competing. So, and obviously holding your own competitions as well. But what is it that made you decide to open a facility like this and start your own business and get into the esports business in general?
This is all a product of kind of giving myself a shot on the thing that I actually like. I was going to college to become a lawyer. I was going to Hunter College, and halfway through my I think it was my junior year. Like halfway through my junior year, I actually got sick. I got shingles. It's kind of a rough time. Shingles is kind of a thing that people get when you're overly stressed out or you're old. Like, those are the two main causes of getting shingles. And apparently I was stressed out. So I was playing games at the time. I was playing World of Warcraft and playing some other games at the time. And because I was stuck in bed at home, this is kind of like, well, can't go to school right now, so I guess I'm just gonna play more games. So I was like, I like this. Why can't I do something with this? What can I do with it? Like, and I really feel for a lot of the people who I've encountered or who I know of that have a passion for gaming, and they don't. It's hard for them to locate the adjacent, like, worthy things. Like, it's hard for them to look at business or look at marketing or look at all those kind of things and see how the two things like are related. There are a lot of sports that, a lot of qualities that come out of like professional esports players, or even like pseudo professional, even like people who are just, they're good at this is what they like spending their time is, you have to find the quality that's there and see where it applies to real life, like where they can like do something with that. If they're not good enough to play games professionally, that doesn't mean that their gaming hobby doesn't have its own merit. I think for me, problem solving and people management is like, I absolutely sharpened that skill in World of Warcraft. That's where I learned the majority of my ability to grow things. Like it's a World of Warcraft in particular happens to be a very large team sport. It's a 20-person team sport, so learning how to like deal with people and figure out problem solving as a 20-man team it's a unique experience. I haven't done anything else, and I've played a lot of traditional sports. I haven't done something where it feels like these are the 20 people and we're using 20 people to try to problem solve at all times. Like it's incredibly unique experience. And so I want to like share that with like how I've seen people come into my store and they're in, like, we host tournaments for every which what game. And I've seen people come in and they're good at the game and they enjoy it. And after a tournament, they're still hanging around. Well, yes, people are hanging around because it's fun, but I truly believe that like people who are hanging around are like, they're hungry. They're hungry in the sense of this is what they do for fun, but they want to get better. So if they come to a place where people are better than them, they're like, okay, let me like see what's going on. Let me see what people are doing. So that's kind of like the environment that I want to breed by opening Albert Esports. That was my whole goal in the first place. My whole goal in the first place is I really enjoy getting better at games. I really enjoy the camaraderie of like of developing like as a team. And gaming there's so many people who are interested in it, but they don't know how to apply it to other areas of life. And I think even this thing with the college, being able to, it means so much to me that we can go scholarships to students who can take those like life skills that they learn from gaming and figure out the good way to apply it.
I agree. And I think just a lot of the things that you said there are kind of why you were the one who we felt was the best to run this program, because you started your own place because you wanted to, and you had great reasons behind it of not only wanting to get better, but also wanting to help other people get better and just open up the platform to so many other people and, create an audience in that. And, obviously I mentioned before that I had interest in us starting an esports program, but if I was in charge of it, it would have been probably a very basic level. And then you came to us with an idea, and it's so much bigger than anything I would have thought of. So, I think that it's important for people to know that you're bringing a lot of passion to it, and it's more than just wanting to be a coach. It's wanting to build something from the ground up and really make it into something special. So, and like I said, you're the guy. We felt like you're the right guy to do this. But one thing I want to find out about you too is, what is the competitive background that you have when it comes to esports?
I've played a lot of games at like a pretty good level. For me, I've played, because I started with a Blizzard game, because World of Warcraft is like the game that kind of really got me into gaming. I've played that game at a US 5th level, but I'll get back to that. So I've tried a lot of games since then. I've played Overwatch at like Masters level. I've played League of Legends at Platinum level. I've played Super Smash Brothers at amateur level at best. I've tried, but sometimes, everyone, like, if you're an athlete, I venture to find an athlete that vibes with every sport they've ever tried. It's incredible. There's a reason why triathlons are so impressive. It's because even if this is what you like to do and this is what you're like your passion, it's so hard to really find the person that like can just bat 100 in 3 different sports. It's incredible. So for me, fighting games I really enjoyed them actually, but it has not clicked yet. I've only been trying fighting games for the last like 2 years or so since I opened my store. But shooting games I'm pretty decent at. Things are more reliant on strategy and like know-how and information sync. That seems to be more my wheelhouse. So that's why I also did well at Hearthstone. That's like my brief game background. But to get back to World of Warcraft, that has been something that I've done from like started at a low level and really built and like started to understand what it takes to get from like nothing to actual like high level competition. So me saying that we were competing at US fifth, to try to like explain that in a way that the average listener can understand, is that there are 10 million people who played the game at the time, and of the 10 million, I would say like 10% compete. Like, so 10 million people playing the game, I'd say 10% are competing for like what we're trying to compete for. It's like whoever gets to the end game of the game the fastest, and it's like a race basically. We got there fifth in the US, and that is playing at like half the amount of hours committed that most other people do. So we were never really trying to compete for US first. US first does something crazy. Like their first 2 weeks, they basically, I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's actually worthwhile. So it's interesting enough that the two people competing for US first, not really, there's a pretty decent gap between it. So, but one of them is sponsored by Complexity. Complexity is an esports team owned by Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, and that's Complexity Limit, who happens to be the number one in that game. And then the number two is Golden Guardians, which that name should sound really familiar. It's a Golden State's team. Like the Warriors have an esports team that they have now gotten into World of Warcraft on that level. So those people, they play the first 2 weeks like at like they're playing 2 weeks of like 12 hours a day, and that's how they're like it's impressive. That's how they choose to compete in the game. We chose to compete in the game as 12 hours a week until we get it down. So like much more manageable. Like I would say that a lot of people in our group are like college students and stuff like that, whereas in the other groups where those are people who like have jobs and are just like, hey, at the beginning of every cycle, like once every like 6 months, I need to take a week off. Like that's how it works. But so from perspective, we were pretty good. We were fifth in the US is impressive for sure, but the more impressive feat was that we were doing it in like half the hours of the people around us. That's the majority of my gaming background. The majority of my gaming background comes from starting at like a US 200th spot, and tier by tier figuring out what we needed to like change in each different cycle to like achieve better. And basically how the progression kind of went is we were cutting our rank in half like every couple months. It was like we went from like 122 to 88 to 44 to 22 to 11. It was actually uncanny that it was actually cut in half. But it was really interesting. It's a lot of like, I learned a lot in terms of, is a different kind of problem solving. It's looking at what you currently have and figuring out what is preventing us from doing better. And I'm sure every coach that's ever existed for any like college team, that has to be like the majority of their job. I'm assuming here because I've never really spoken to an athletic coach about something like this, but it has to sound something like, here, this is what we have, this is what we're up against. What is preventing us from winning? How do we defeat the problem? It's similar in esports, and from a management perspective, if you look at like professional sports, you look at like the NFL, there is literally a job on the team where they're looking at the team and they're like, okay, who do we need to trade? Who do we need to acquire? What are our weak points? What are preventing us from doing better? That is like the majority of like, that is my niche. That is what I enjoy doing. That is how I like playing the game that I play. So I do a lot of recruitment for my guild. That's what I've always done. And I do a lot of like decision making in terms of personnel. And so bringing that to a college esports scene, I think I have a lot of perspective on problem solving and figuring out where we're lacking. I think that's what like, and while it might not lead to personnel changes, we end up with like knowing that, okay, this person needs to do this to fill that gap, or this person needs to work on this to fill that gap. That's how that's the expertise that I bring to Monroe Esports that I think will allow us to grow very rapidly.
You know, I was gonna say, as you were explaining all of that I think that ability is a very important aspect of being able to run a program, especially coaching, So it makes a lot of sense that, being able to look at this and say, what can we be doing that will make us better? Or what do we need to bring in and things like that? Like it's exactly what somebody running this program needs to be doing. And running any athletic program needs to be doing. So that's great. And that also is why you're the coordinator, you're in charge of the esports program, but you did bring in coaches that are more specific towards each game. So, it makes a lot of sense that you're going to have your hands on everything, looking at everything, ways you can make it better, but also having people that are specific to each title that can, help our athletes grow and develop their specific skills that they need. And one thing I did want to hit on is, we do want to teach our audience, what kind, a lot more about esports, because, just like me, like I said, I'm looking at it from a very basic perspective with not too much knowledge of, what the world looks like, what the skills look like. So let's say even just in general, the three titles that we're starting with right now, which are League of Legends, Overwatch, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. What are some of the skills you look for when it comes to each of those games? And not necessarily like what you're recruiting for, but things that you look for that you think, hey, this is going to make somebody that's going to be really good at this, or you're more, your skill set fits you in this role differently. All that stuff. Educate me, please.
All right. So the question is, we're trying to figure out like what the qualities that make a good esports player is for the current games that we offer. Let's start with Smash Bros. Smash Bros are, like I said, I've been trying recently. I've been playing that game for about 2 years now, and like I've very much wrapped my head. I've gotten such a greater appreciation for how truly hard fighting games are. It is not only do you require like good button pressing and like dexterity and mental fortitude, but it's also like it's mind games. It's like you are very rewarded for anticipating what your opponent is going to do. It's like think of it like actual sport. Think of it like boxing. I think comparing boxing and Smash Bros is a very, very interesting parallel. So what you see in like boxing, for example, is if I throw a jab and then I feint across, or I jab and then like everything I do in the beginning of a match is to kind of like fish out what my opponent's like natural reaction is. So that's kind of what fighting games are like. It's like trying to gather information, but there are multiple layers to that. Everyone knows you're trying to gather information. So if you do something that's not necessarily threatening, they might do something that is like, it looks like their reaction, but it's a very calculated, they decided to do this here. It's not their natural reaction. So it's a lot of like back and forth like that. Like there are multiple, I could write I'm not even good at fighting games, and I could write a book on like the nuance of how to like, of what makes you good at fighting games. But in general, I think the basics of it is, of the games, I think the button pressing in fighting games are more generally difficult than the other genres. I think that there's no like, specifically in Smash Bros, the single, it's 1v1, so it's not like, there are 2v2, but like generally it's played 1v1, and 1v1 isn't a team sport, so you don't need the cooperative aspect of it, but it is a lot of individual performance. It is, what did I do wrong? How do I fix this? And even if I know the right thing to do, if I didn't press the right buttons properly, it's kind of a bad time. Like we can segment to Overwatch, where Overwatch is a team shooting game where there are roles, like there are different roles. There's 3 separate roles. There's a damage dealing role, there's a tank role, and a support role. And I would say in the tank and support role, positioning and understanding what the goal is and what the enemy is trying to do is more important than your actual button pushes. Like button pushes matter, but they're not, because your role kind of dictates that you're there to kind of like let your damage dealers do damage and protect them from like getting picked off. So in a game like Overwatch, I would say 2 of the 6 people, their button presses are like as important as like a fighting game player, where the other 4, game knowledge starts to really show of like, hey, I need to be here. I need to be here. In this situation, this is better. So it all comes down to, we can go down to League of Legends. Again, it's a team game, 5v5, and button pushes matter, I'd say, more than Overwatch. But now knowledge of a lot of things come into play. Knowledge of where I should be at any given time. Knowledge of in a team fight, in a 5v5 fight, like my team is clashing with the other team, like 5-on-5, everyone's in the right place. There is still like know-how of where to be and what I should be doing. So I think a lot of it really comes down to critical thinking, decision making, and it's not easy. Like half the time, like every team has a captain. Like if you're playing basketball, there's a team captain, and he kind of like leads and like dictates the pace, and that happens in these team games as well. But things are so fast paced because obviously they're video games and not real people with real people limitations. Things are super fast paced, and if you don't know the right decision to make and you're waiting for a call, sometimes it's just too late. They can't make all the calls for you. So I think some of the qualities that really shine through are problem solving, decision making, and like mental dexterity. It's very, you have to be like, I almost said light on your feet, but it's obvious it's video games, so it's kind of an interesting way to put it. But it's you have to be like at the ready. So for me, when we're looking for good players of these games, it really comes down to, do you have the dedication to really want to understand how things are supposed to go and put in the time and the repetition to like get your hands to agree with what your knowledge now knows. Like now you know the right thing to do. Are you going to put in the time to get your hands up to speed? And I think that's really what's I like so much about video games. I think that it's so accessible. It's like there's so many games. I think that honestly with like traditional sports, because of the physicality of it all, there are people who are just better than other people out the gate, and like we like to like refer to that as like natural talent versus, it's like talent versus you can hone your skill, but you can come into it naturally talented. I think that there's a higher rate of successful people in esports that are not quote unquote talented versus traditional sports. I think traditional sports talent plays like a bigger role in terms of like, don't get me wrong, I fully believe that even in traditional sports that hard work can overcome most things, but there is like, I mean, hard work's not going to grow me 5 inches. Like I could be insane at basketball. If I'm 5'4", it's not going to go so hot. So I really like that. I like the accessibility that if somebody has like the mental capacity to like learn and like that's like the only barrier. The barrier is, can you learn fast enough? If you can't learn fast enough, that's really when it starts to become like, we cannot make you as good as you can. But the natural talent comes on reaction speed, but reaction speed is something you can work on. Like it's definitely there, but I do truly believe that like anyone with like enough like passion for something can get really good at most of the esports that exist right now. Like I don't think the barrier to entry on like getting good is that hard. Like I've seen so many people go from horrible to pretty great, and it's like time and effort, not I was born 5 feet taller than my opponents, like, or faster or stronger or whatever it is.
Monroe MustHangs is sponsored by the Monroe MustHangs Sideline Store, powered by our apparel partners at BSN Sports. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, hats, jackets, or accessories, the Monroe MustHangs Sideline Store has it all. Gear up with the new Monroe MustHangs logo and make it your own with hundreds of customizable options, including sports-specific designs. For the month of January, you could take 20% off all orders of $85 or more by using the promo code JAN21. That's JAN21. Visit MonroeCollegeMustangs.com/shop to look your best as you cheer on the Mustangs. I think that does go into, why they call it esports now, though, is that there is still so much of it that does relate to the traditional sports like basketball and baseball and football, where it is, there's a big stamina factor to it, whether it's mental stamina or physical stamina. Like I could say in my own experiences of playing at home and playing Super Smash Brothers on the Nintendo Switch, I get tired because my hands are moving so quickly because I'm literally just button mashing because that's my skill level. And yeah, I think there's a lot to it. And like I know of a lot of, just in my research and talking to you, that there is an exercise factor to esports as well. And it's part of the program, is being able to work out similar to how other teams work out. It's still something that helps you, whether it's just keeping your stamina up or strengthening your hands. But there's so much that it still relates back to the traditional sports that it's in a way, it's just as mentally and physically tough as any other sport you see. At least from my perspective of it. You could tell me if I'm a little bit off on that one.
I think that there's a difference. I'd compare it more to like cross country rather than sprinting. I think that for sprinters, there's a certain amount of like physicality that like you can't overcome. Like some people are just born to sprint, like I feel like they're born like this is how their body is. They're good at it. I'm not saying that they didn't have to put in work, but they're definitely like, with the equal work put in versus another person, they're just ahead. I think that is, I would compare esports more to like cross country, where it's like your mental endurance, your ability to push through matters more than like your like one-to-one excellence level. Like I think it's like the grit, or like the ability to keep performing at the same level you're capable of performing, is more important than the 1% difference in somebody who is just stronger than the other person who's putting just as much work as them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's a really good analogy. And I think our audience will appreciate how many different sports you've actually made references to during this, to kind of give everyone a better understanding of what we're talking about here. And one thing I want to touch on as well is that the esports business in general over the last couple of years has grown so immensely that you could argue that it's on the same competitive level in terms of viewership as any sport there is. I mean, there have been competitions in some certain games that have reached Super Bowl level viewership. So, it's at this point, it's $1 billion industry. And there's so many different parts to it. Like I said, so many different games that are competitive. There are so many different ways to show off competitions, whether it's, on TV or if it's on YouTube or Twitch. I think it's just a really important thing to note that it's such a growing industry that, it's also expanding so much at the college level that you're going to see a lot of these college athletes becoming professionals very quickly, if I'm not mistaken. And it's unique as well at the college level that you could see professionals that do come back and compete at the college level. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about the business in general and what it's looking like, and kind of how it grew over the last few years.
Okay, I would say that any like random metric you look up on Google will tell you that the esports industry has been growing hand over fist. Like it's like, increasing by 25% every year, or whatever the current metric is. It's large. It's like no business at this level is growing at this rate. And specifically COVID has shown that this business is quite insulated from like outside factors. Like outside factors have ruined and grown many businesses, but this is one of those businesses that hasn't really seen much effect, even though there has been like huge in-person, like we are hosting this tournament. I mean, there was a CSGO tournament. CSGO is a Counter-Strike. It's a shooting game. It is a CSGO tournament at the Barclays. Like, it almost fills out. There was an Overwatch tournament at the Barclays that I actually went to that definitely filled out. Like, I tried to get my friends tickets like a week before, and there was no more tickets to be sold. So the viewership is there, but however, even without the viewership, the online presence is more important to the like success of the business. The business, like when it comes to things like businesses growing from, it's all about viewership and what big companies think your advertising dollars are worth. And with that, esports is definitely like approaching critical mass in terms of it's getting to the point where big advertisers, like companies like more recently, a couple of years ago, a company called um, like the companies that it kind of goes back and forth. So originally, the companies who were winning these big competitions were like whatever people made the companies. It was like, you know, Blue Tigers, or like some innocuous name that's not connected to anyone. Then like a couple years later than that, I think like 5 years ago, the team who won the League of Legends Worlds was Samsung White. Recognize that name? It's a large company. Like nowadays, like these companies, like I just told you with World of Warcraft, Complexity is owned by the Dallas Cowboys, and Golden Guardians is owned by Golden State. So it is traditional sports are now dipping their toes into esports because the model is very similar. It's huge viewership because of people interest, that sells merchandise because of people interest, that sells advertising spots because of people interest. And the best thing about esports on that end is that the target market is like one of the biggest spending markets, like in terms of like if you're looking from like a marketing standpoint, like 20 somethings male are like some of the largest purchasing power. So advertising companies are like, hey, this is direct marketing. These are the people who buy our stuff. Let's get in there. So you see big companies like, I've seen Coca-Cola sponsor things. I've seen BMW sponsor things. I've seen like Intel, Nvidia, like big computer peripheral companies are starting to sponsor things. Like, so the business is there. The business is growing. It's getting to the point where at a professional level, you can see that the viewership is high enough that big corporations want to invest into this. And all those things have trickle-down effects. So as the NFL got bigger, college football got bigger, because now college football is like the pregame and more like it has more value because NFL has more value. So it's kind of the same thing. So as professional has more value, the college level will have more value and it'll get more developed. And that's like where we're trying to beat the buzzer on that one. We're trying to get to the point where we are so prepared for college esports to blow up in a big way with support from these publishers that our students are getting in on the ground floor.
I appreciate you explaining that so eloquently in a way that I was not able to do before that. Yeah, it really is amazing. And I remember the first time just a number of years ago seeing just photos and videos of arenas that are literally sold out and so loud for esports competitions. And it really is like that. I think that's when I first decided, like when I was here, I was like, I have to at least bring up the idea of an esports program, just because like, look how big it's getting. It's exploding, and it's, like you said, just growing at such a rapid rate that, you don't see other sports growing like that. As much as technology grows, you're not seeing anything else that's coming out of nowhere and growing like that. It really is something crazy. And another thing that is involved in that, we talked about obviously competitive opportunities when it comes to our program and when it comes to esports in general, but there's so much more to the business and there's so many opportunities available. And I want to kind of wrap things up with the other opportunities that are involved in esports. Like we talked about, like obviously there is competition, but there is also the social media aspect to it and the broadcasting aspect and the recording and streaming. So again, you're the expert. I want to hear everything you have to say when it comes to the outside competition opportunities from esports.
I can tell you a little bit. I can start a little bit with we're doing some stuff with New Rochelle High School as well. We started a club at New Rochelle High School. We got them okay to like practice and function from Encore Esports, even though it's like off campus, which is awesome. Like that's awesome that New Rochelle High School had the confidence in us to run a high school program. Now, what that means is we had specifically Overwatch. Overwatch was probably our most successful program that we ran. We did the same thing we're doing with Monroe. We did Overwatch, League of Legends, and Smash Bros. And Overwatch, we had scheduled games. We put them in a league. It was great. We did like recordings. We'll actually probably have some of those on the Monroe page. I'll show. Maybe I can get Monroe to play our high school team at some point. It'd be really interesting. That's the cool thing about esports. There's no barrier. You can get beat up on by 16-year-olds and they won't feel bad. Like it does not it does not matter where you are. So it's what we did with them is we had, let's say we had 13 people on the I think it was about that, 13 to 14 people on the team for Overwatch. We had practice once a week. It was really good, and this is all at the store. We did it on Wednesdays. Now, besides that, we also had a girl that came in and we taught her to use all the streaming equipment. So when they did competitions against other schools, I mean, we even played Hunter College. Like we had New Rochelle High School play Hunter College because I had some friends that were part of the esports program there. We recorded it and we streamed it. And I could have definitely got behind the stream and ran the stream, but instead I had one of the students from the high school. We taught her how to do all the broadcasting. We taught her how to do the scene changes. We taught her how to make the scenes. And we even got like, because it's only 6 people playing at a time, so there's 14 people on the team. We got 2 other members from the team to get on commentary and talk about the game and what was happening in the game. So this is like how we want to explain with Monroe as well. Like having there's like adjacent stuff. So there's like you know how in like I don't even know what the exact job title is, but like in college, in like high school and college, like there are people who do plays and there's people who are in the plays, but then there's also people who are working the tech end of it, whether it's lights and stuff. Like those jobs exist in esports too. Like so, like think of these jobs as like the lights. Like these are if you are interested and super into esports, but you don't have the ability to compete at that level, you can still find plenty of worthy jobs adjacent to the games themselves. Like whether that's marketing, whether that's the business aspect of running competitions, whether that's like the technical side of it, like not the running of the stream and stuff like that, but the creating the programs that do like all the scene changes. And there's a lot of technical aspects, and they're kind of broken up into different things. There's like the actual production of what's happening like in real time, whether that's like recording with cameras, streaming to the thing, and there's behind the desk of the computer where you're the one changing the scenes, changing like what words say what on the Twitch screen. Then there's also like the people who are putting together the actual like, we are setting up the lights, we are setting up the microphones, like when it comes to competition day. There's a whole lot of stuff on that end. And then even besides that, like straying a little more away from esports, if you're into gaming, there's game design, there's coding, there's even cybersecurity. There's a lot of things adjacent to esports where it's like, if this is what I'm interested in, here's how I can be part of this industry without having to be good enough to be a professional. And anyone who's ever been interested in esports, I'm sure you like it's like getting to the point where it's like, this is awesome, this is what I like. I'm not good enough to play, but if I could watch and this is part of my job, this is awesome. Like that's where we want to get the students. We want to get people to facilitate whatever they can in terms of esports if that's what they want to be involved in, because there's definitely room, and I don't think there's enough education in general to what else can you do with this skill set.
And that's definitely the reason why I think the sky's the limit with this esports program, is that we have our eyes on so many more aspects other than competition. We want to make sure that there is, basically an educational program that goes along with this program. Well, obviously I'll have my involvement as I do with every other sport as well, but I can only do so much. And I think there's so much for students to come in and learn that are directly involved with this program that, you're going to help them with, I'm going to help them with, and they're just going to kind of learn on their own. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the program. But, we're reaching the end of our time today. So it's time to wrap things up a little bit. But Govinda, I want to thank you again for taking the time to really educate our audience on what this program is going to look like, what esports are. And before we go, what are some ways that if, students are interested in finding out more about our program or want to sign up and become part of it, how can they reach you? And of course, I'll put the links in the caption as well here, but where are some places that you want people to reach out to you?
There'll be some links, but we'll also have we have our Discord server. So if you're at Monroe or planning to be at Monroe and you're looking at anything esports related, or if you just like the game in general and you want to be part of the club, there's a Discord server. You can find people to play with here. You can find if you want to compete in the future, this is where you can be. if we don't offer you a game yet, this is still where you should be. If you're interested in games at all, this is the place to be. Like, we will figure out a way to help you either have more fun or facilitate you getting better to the point of wanting to compete. Like, the Discord server is definitely like the place to start. There'll be on-campus activities and stuff that we do like in the future when things get a bit back to normal. There'll be a lot more of a presence of like, hey, these are the guys doing this thing. Come talk to us. Like, let us know like how you want to be involved. There is space for you. Trust me. Like, we want you involved, even if all you want to do is find more people to play games with. Like,
yeah, we're definitely in the business of creating opportunities here, I would say.
So there's a Discord on the Monroe Esports, like the Monroe Esports webpage. There will be info about like the Discord info. There will be info about the games we're currently offering, what we're looking for in a player, etc. Like, the best way to reach out to us is absolutely Discord. My email will also be included. But yeah, if you don't know what Discord is, definitely email me and I will set you up.
And of course, you can find a lot of this information on our website, and specifically on the esports branch of our website, which is monroecollege.com. I'm sorry, monroecollegemustangs.com/esports. And that's where you're going to find all of our stuff in the coming weeks. Check out that page. We're going to have not only this interview, but more features just to get to know the coaches, get to know the team, learn a little bit more about esports. So definitely make sure you're checking back there. For those of you, thank you for listening. For those of you who want to check out our previous interviews, we're on YouTube every single week, on Instagram on our IGTV page at Monroe MustHangs. This is available in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. So again, Govinda, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us and educate all of us. And for those of you listening, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and thanks for hanging out with us this week. We'll see you next time.